Welcome to the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. Bradley looks to take advantage of a second chance as they face the Dayton Racers in the first round of the NIT inside Carver Arena at 8 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. I'm your host, Chad Klein. If you want to listen to content from previous shows, you can go to WMBDradio.com, click on podcasts, and scroll down to Braves Plus for the full catalog of this year's interviews. In tonight's show, I talk with professional counselor Renee Patton about mental health, Brian Wardle about recruiting and eligibility, and since the women were also selected to the NIT, it seems only fitting to run my conversation with Maya Wardle about coming back to Bradley. All next on the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. This is the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. I'm talking to Dr. Renee Patton, professional counselor at Bradley University. We've been talking about mental health.
Yes.
That's not a 8 to 5 job.
No.
How does that work?
So if there's ever, we have, I do work 8 to 5, and then we have the counseling centers open the same hours.
Well, you just blew my whole premise away.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
And then we also, if there's an emergency after hours, we have an on-call after hours number that's on the back of the student's ID. And they can call that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week while they're there. And that's if you're suicidal, if there's a sexual assault, you're having thoughts of hurting yourself, hurting someone else, or if somebody close to you has passed away, like a parent or something.
Wow. Yeah.
In those situations, usually the athletic staff are very involved. So I might get that call from a coach or a trainer or something, be like, hey, Susie's mom just passed away, and I'll do an outreach with them. Or, oh, somebody was assaulted. Can you help out with that? Or, hey, somebody's telling me they're having thoughts of hurting themselves. Can you assess them?
So I don't mean to pry. Has that happened?
Yes. I've been doing this for 20 years, and yes, that's happened several times. And in situations of any of those, too, if I assess them and I don't feel like they're safe with themselves, then I send them to the hospital, which here is Carl Health in Peoria. That's who has the behavioral unit that we send somebody to.
Interesting.
So we would send somebody down there to get assessed, athletes, non-athletes, and then they maybe have to stay overnight in the hospital.
So there's times that you might, if you know of a situation.
Yes.
Maybe the coach doesn't.
Yes.
Do you have the power or the control to have to be able to pull them out of practice?
I do.
Or a game? Or
I do. And that's where,
or whatever?
Yeah, and that's where that release of information really has to come in, because I tell the person.
I can't do that without that.
Yeah, except if I always tell in the land of therapy, when the first thing I say when I meet them is everything's confidential unless you're going to hurt yourself or hurt someone else. Then I have to tell someone. So in athletics, we've made it a rule that I have to tell somebody in athletics, because again, this is their family away from home, and then they sign something when they get here that who do we want, who am I allowed to talk to with that. So in athletics, we do tell somebody, because if somebody doesn't show up for practice for 4 days, they're going to wonder where are they, so somebody's going to have to know where they are. So.
And you talked about trust, and I assume that has relation to trust, because they're working or playing within the athletic realm as a student athlete.
Yes.
So someone in athletics usually has some degree of knowledge of what's going on.
Yes, exactly.
Or at least know where they're at, or where they're at, whatever.
For sure. And then again, Dr. Reynolds is very good at this too. It's a family, so it's very important we get in touch with a family member or something too if they're struggling that much that I don't feel like they can go to practice or travel with the team that weekend, that they're going to have to stay back.
So I want to give a possible scenario.
Sure.
Curious to see if you've run into this.
Sure.
I'm a high school athlete. I've been the best player on my team since middle school.
Yep.
I've come to Bradley, and I haven't seen the floor.
Yes. That's very common, John.
Or my minutes are way down from what I expected.
Yes.
Or I had certain expectations that I'm not there.
For sure.
Do you run into that?
All the time. The expectations is what I always talk. That's the word I use with them, too.
Expectations.
there's an expectation that people have when they come to college. And for a lot of people, when that expectation isn't met, that's when they start running into issues. Whether, and everybody deals with that differently.
Sure.
Stress. Some people might get depressed or anxious or drink or do drugs or want to hurt themselves. It's always different. But I always say, I deal with a lot of the freshmen because I said they're the big fish in the little pond now.
Okay.
They were the big fish in the little pond in high school. Now they're the little fish in the big pond, and they're a D1. This isn't even like, I'm just going to go play. You know? So they have to really earn their time, and that's a big struggle for some of them. And then on the other end of that,
I was just going to ask. Yeah. So let's talk about the transfer portal.
Yes.
So you have players that are going from school to school.
Yes.
Sometimes multiple times.
Yes.
I would assume there has to be some degree of thought or mental that has to go into that. Do you deal with some of that?
Yeah, some of that too. They'll come to me and we'll go over the pros and cons of staying, the pros and cons of leaving. Where would you go? What would that take? Are parents on board with that? What are you looking for? What's the most important thing to you? Because for a lot of students, is it the playing time? Is it the coach? Is it my teammates? Is it the experience? Is it, and Bradley's so academic that, for a lot of them too, they're here to get a degree. We have athletes that are engineering students and nursing students, and that's tough, to be going to all these classes for nursing and engineering, and you're missing classes to compete, and you have practices and everything. So, if they're thinking about transferring, do they have your major where you want to go? Where do you think you're going to go? And for a lot of them too, it's like just the grass isn't always greener. So what are you looking for? So I think part of my job is to bring that
kind of
to
walk
their
them
attention.
through that process.
Yeah, like you could go somewhere and they're going to feed you a line and they're going to be like, yeah, you're going to play, and you could get there and never play. So how are you going to feel about that if that happens? What would that look like for you? How are you going to handle that?
So then on top of that, let's go to the final phase of it. Let's say you have a senior now
that is a hard one because
they've basically played athletics and academics their entire life.
So,
and now transferring into real life.
Yeah.
How has NIL and portal affected that?
All of it. It's so affected.
And you talk about expectations.
Yes. So much of it, nowadays too, they're chasing the money. They're chasing the playing time. They're chasing everything. And again, they might get here, and then what if they're not playing? Then they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be upset. And now that you don't have to sit out of here, you just ching, 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 go round and round and round. So it's but I get a lot of seniors because they're literally like, what am I doing now? I don't even know. And this isn't, right now we're at the basketball, but we have track and field, we have golf, we have all of it. So they're like, oh my gosh, do I go to grad school? Like, I knew I was going to go to college and play, but now my 4 years are up. So do I go to grad school? Do I get a job? For some, though, you can play professionally. Are you going to go play overseas? Are you going to play golf professionally? Are you going to try that? So, and what's that going to look like? So, for a lot of them, that's a bigger transition than even just coming to college because they're still playing their sport, because it's just not going to be as big part of their life anymore.
This is the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. This is the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. And I am again getting to talk with Coach Brian Wardle. We got to talk earlier in the season, Coach, and now I want to talk about recruiting, because recruiting is such a big part of what you do. And the first question I have, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this because of all the recent hubbub about eligibility.
Right.
Do you have a take on the current status of NCAA eligibility?
Well, it's it's I've been coaching over 20 years, over 15 as a head coach, and I'd say every 5 years it changes.
Okay.
Kind of like rules are always changing, things are always evolving. Portal, obviously, to be able to transfer whenever you want. NIL, but the previous 5 years, the transferring started, and then there was different rules that affected our game. And 15 years ago, there was different rules.
Sure.
So it's always evolving. Everything is, even in business world, and we are a business. And so it's, for me, recruiting has changed dramatically because of the portal. And can you retain your roster?
Sure.
Who are you going to keep? Who's going to stay? So fall recruiting used to be everything. You used to recruit 4 freshmen because you had 4 seniors graduating.
Yeah.
And you had sophomores going to be juniors, and you had juniors going to be seniors.
And they worked their way up.
And so that's why high school kids got recruited so heavily in the past. Now it's just so different because you can't get young. Young players are talented, but they don't win at a high level, especially at the level we want to win at and contend for championships in the Valley. Like, you need experience in age and older bodies and older minds. And so it's become spring recruiting. Spring is when you do 80% of your recruiting now.
When the portal opens, basically. Okay.
And when you get a feel of your roster and what you need and what you have. And so that has changed dramatically over the last 5 years is the recruiting periods where, we'll sign 1 kid, maybe 2 in the fall.
Which I think you have this year.
Yeah, we signed 2, Race and Ben, and 1 junior college, older kid. Ben's 21 already, so he'll be coming in as a 22-year-old. Race will be a young, projected, I think, very good player. He's going to need a year to get stronger, which I will like doing that. I still love my high school kids, as you can tell. I took a lot of them. I took 4 of them this past year.
Well,
I got Dietrich, Zoe, Montana. Well, I took 5, Jackson and Goose.
Sure.
Jackson and Goose are redshirting. In the state of college recruiting, and we got a little more scholarships, if Dr. Reynolds continues, if I can, I'd love to redshirt 1 or 2 freshmen every year to keep them in the program, develop them, and have them ready as second-year guys in case you lose some guys. I think it's a smart strategy, especially at our level.
And plus, they're developing in that one season they're with you. They're doing all the lifting. They're doing all the...
And they know the system.
They know the system.
They know me as a coach. Our routine, our work ethic, our locker room. I mean, all of that, I think, is huge. Your second year is always way better and easier than your first year.
Sure.
It doesn't matter who you are. So, on your first question, I don't know how this is all going to work. This is my answer to most people, Chad. It's like, I'm not smart enough to understand all the law that comes into play.
Sure.
And what the government can do for us, or what collective bargaining means exactly. I mean, I don't know if that can ever happen. Obviously, we need guardrails. We need a fence. We need some regulation. We are an open market, free agency with no rules at all, like no guardrails. So I think everybody wants some. I just don't know how they're going to legally be able to do it, because honestly, the student athlete has all the power.
Yes,
and they do, because the NCAA has been sued so much and lost so much. Well, and the NCAA doesn't want to put any stamp on anything right now, and I totally understand that because of what has happened, but I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know if the government has to get involved. I don't know how employees of the university, I mean, there's so many, I think, layers to this that I don't really know exactly the enough information about. So I kind of just keep my mouth shut and say, listen, adapt or die, figure it out. How do I help Bradley be better at this and get us to be competitive?
I am talking to Coach Brian Wardle on the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. This is the F-Train Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. I'm talking to Coach Brian Wardle, and we're on a road trip, ironically, with women's basketball. And so we have the opportunity to have Coach Wardle and his daughter, Maya Wardle, with us. Maya, welcome.
Hello.
So you went to Eastern Kentucky for a year. I got to watch, I call it being wardled every once in a while, where your dad will call me and it's like, I got to go see, I'll be talking to my wife and I'm like, hey, Coach Wardle's calling. It's like, I have an opportunity to watch some film, and sometimes it's to come watch you play on television. What was it like? Or what was the decision that made you, why did you decide on Eastern Kentucky? Let's start there first.
Yeah, I mean, I decided on EKU for a lot of reasons. I think the biggest one was it was a school that I felt like was an opportunity for me to kind of make my own name for myself. It was in a city that no one knew me, and it was close enough to home where I could come back, but it was far enough away where I had my space, and I just really wanted to make a name for myself. And it was a great experience. I learned so much. I was on a team with 3 fifth-year guards that played in front of me, and I learned so much from them. And then, throughout the course of the season, I kind of learned that although I wanted to, make a name for myself, a huge part of who I was and my name was from Peoria and the community I was from. And, my last name, it's a privilege and it's an honor, and I love having it. And so it was a huge part of who I was growing up. So as much as I was like, okay, I'm going to make my own name for myself, I realized that my name was tied to this community, and I really missed it.
That is so cool. So maybe I jumped ahead maybe a little too far, but I want to go back a little bit. What is it like growing up in a coach's household?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for the weak. I will say that. It is not necessarily for the weak, but it was awesome. I mean, so many opportunities. And for me, being around it my whole life, it inspired what I want to do. I want to coach. So being around it was, it's the coolest thing ever. You get to see all the behind the scenes, all the hard work.
You're getting on-the-job training, basically.
Basically. And in my opinion, one of the best. I'm probably a little biased, but just seeing how hard he works and his staff, and just all the late night hours, film sessions, all the extra work that they do that, really goes unnoticed to most of the public. They get to see the coaches and the players for 2 hours. I get to see them every single day. So it was really cool. And, it's so much more work than people think. And I earned a lot of respect for my dad and his staff and these players, and it's what inspired me to want to go do that, though, because I was like, yeah, this is a lot of hard work, but then you see them win the tournament and you're like, wow, it's all worth it. So I fell in love with the journey, and that's kind of what inspired me to not only want to be a Division I athlete but also be a coach.
I have to ask the question, maybe I'm going to embarrass your dad a second here.
Oh boy.
Who does Coach Pop call? Or who has to get involved when Dad's getting too involved? Or does Dad get too involved? Is he hands off?
My dad is 100% hands off in everything to do with my basketball career.
Okay.
And, I really, really respect him for it. He has completely let me do my own thing, make my own mistakes, make my own name. He's completely let me be me, and I've really respected it. And especially even with being at Bradley, he'll never, butt in. He'll never, talk to the coaches, because, I don't want that, we have our boundaries, and and my dad respects it, and it makes me really appreciate it, because he's my dad, and I feel like that's the coolest thing. As we've gotten older, I feel like we've really had a great relationship as a father-daughter, and so that's what I feel when I'm at Bradley, is oh, this is so cool. I can go have lunch with my dad. This is awesome. But when it comes to basketball, he's very hands off, and he lets me do my own thing, and I'll come seek his advice. I'll be like, all right, you saw that, what do you think, and that's when we'll talk about it. But for the most part, and he's so busy in his season right now with his team, and he is so invested, and I don't know how many times I've come in and to say hi, and he's watching film. So yeah, he lets me do my own thing, and it's just been great. I get to see him as my dad a lot.
So you also want to be a coach. Mm-hmm. Do you? I assume at some points you've sat down or do sit down with Coach Wardle and watch film together and break down film. Do your coaching philosophy, or his coaching philosophy, and your future coaching philosophy, do they ever butt heads?
Not really. I got the privilege to coach my sister in AAU.
Okay.
So
actually, it's funny you said it. Do you know Erica Abendroth by chance?
Yes.
So we're good friends with them, and you were I think you coached there, or were part of their team, or helped her coach or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I got to coach Emmy in AAU this past summer, and it was so funny because I just feel like I take a lot of what I've seen him do because he's extremely successful at it, and I do it as well. So I would say we're very similar. I think it's going to be different maybe with how I...
Coach Wardle just chimed in. She's better.
No. Not yet. But, I think it's different too. I want to... make my way towards the women's side. So I think it's a little different, coaching men's and women. But in terms of the culture that I want to bring to a program, it's very much similar to the values that he does, and because hey, they're pretty successful, I will say.
Maya, thank you so much. Thank you for allowing us to talk to you. This is the Afternoon Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. It's the Afternoon Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD. Now, I knew the MVC conference tournament was going to have some upsets based on how tight the top 6 to 7 teams were in the league. But I never expected what really transpired. In day 1, number 9 Drake upset number 8 Southern Illinois. In day 2, number 9 Drake upset number 1 Belmont easily, hanging 100 points on the Bruins. Followed by number 5 UIC upsetting number 4 Murray State quite easily. Number 2 Bradley was the only higher seed to win in day 2, surviving number 7 Valparaiso in double overtime. Day 2 would end with number 6 Northern Iowa upsetting Illinois State again easily. In the semifinal, UIC beat Drake easily, and Northern Iowa held on to beat Bradley 73-69. It was an opportunity missed, but Northern Iowa was a team that looked like it was on a mission. For Bradley, they probably played in the 2 best games of the tournament, but unfortunately came up short to the eventual champion, Northern Iowa. Now, looking at conference tournaments around the country, the interesting thing in the makeup is Bradley was not alone. Higher seeds were dropping like flies. 14 of the 31 automatic bids that are given to conference tournament champions, the number 1 seed lost in those tournaments 14 of the 31 times. The lowest seed to come away was number 8 Prairie View A&M out of the SWAC, and there were 2 number 7 seeds that won, Idaho out of the Big Sky and number 7 Purdue in the Big Ten that won their conference tournaments. Unfortunately, Bradley misses out on the NCAA, and many of us thought it was a long shot that they would get an NIT bid because the BPI and Ken Palm ratings were not in our favor. However, Belmont declined postseason play because their head coach just took the Kansas State job. Power conference teams, Oklahoma, Indiana, Northwestern, Pitt, LSU, South Carolina, Seton Hall, all declined NIT invitations. Oklahoma, of the teams mentioned above, is the only team that's playing in the postseason, and they're playing in the 18 Crown Tournament out in Las Vegas. So it's a new age, as teams are already looking ahead to next year as they try to gain an advantage, whether it be locking in a new head coach or getting an advantage in the player transfer portal. So looking ahead now to the NIT, it's made up of 4 teams from power conferences: Auburn, California, Oklahoma State, and Wake Forest. The rest of the NIT field is made up of mid-major teams, including 4 from the Missouri Valley. Illinois State is the only seeded team at number 4, and they get a home game against Kent State, and their game is going on now. It started at 7 o'clock in Normal. Bradley gets a home game against number 2 Dayton in Carver Arena at 8 o'clock because Dayton is a host site for the NCAA tournament games coming up. Murray State is at number 2 Nevada at 9 o'clock, and UIC is at number 2 California at 10 if you are so inclined to stay awake. So let's look at Bradley's contest against Dayton. I guess what I was looking for is, are there any common opponents to see how this game might play out or how these two teams compare? And actually, there were some common teams played. Dayton split with St. Louis University, losing by 31 at SLU and winning by 15 at home. Bradley lost to St. Louis University in an exhibition scrimmage to start the season. However, it was fairly close. Dayton played St. Bonaventure twice and beat them twice, but both games were close. During the season, they won at Dayton 72-70, and in the A10 tournament quarterfinal, they won 68-63. Bradley, on the other hand, lost to St. Bonaventure in their season opener at a neutral site, 69-63. And finally, Dayton lost at home to Liberty, 64-61 back in December. You'll recall Bradley beat Liberty at a neutral site back in November, 74-64. So when you look at common opponents, I look for this matchup to be tight. However, there are two other factors that will likely play a role in tonight's game. First, time off. Bradley lost in their second game of the Valley Tournament 10 days ago. Dayton lost in their third game in 3 days in the A10 final on Sunday, and they had to travel to Bradley. So the question for me is, will Bradley be rusty, or will Dayton be beat up and tired from the A10 tournament and the travel? And the second thing is, who wants it? In the NIT, what we've seen over the last couple years is the teams who are able to put the disappointment of missing the NCAA tournament behind them and focus on winning are the teams that play well and advance. So it'll be interesting to see how this matchup plays out. Up next, Dave Snell gets the scouting report on Dayton on Braves Insight, followed by pregame comments from Coach Brian Wardle on the Uftreen Auto Group Braves Plus pregame show on 1470 and 100.3 WMBD.